Hey everyone, I'm out here at the amphitheater, which usually this time of year, we'd have lots of shows out here. Lots of school kids would be coming out, seeing our raptors. Unfortunately, we're shut down. We're not doing those shows anymore for the safety of everyone. But instead, I'm bringing you these videos each and every day so that people can still learn about these raptors. Yesterday, we finished up with the red-tailed hawks. Today, we're going to move on to a much smaller species of hawk, the broad-winged hawk. Broad-winged hawks are a little bit more secretive than those red tails, so you may not have even heard about them before. But let's start talking more about them. So this is our broad-winged hawk. Now, broad-winged hawks are a migratory species, so we only have them here in Alabama in the summertime. In the winter, they'll migrate down to South and Central America. Massive migration, thousands and thousands of miles. I think they've done some research on them, and they travel about 70 miles a day. But then once they get to South and Central America, they really don't move around that much. They kind of stay in about a 1 square mile area. And so a massive migration down to South and Central America, where it's a little bit warmer. They can still find their food a little bit easier throughout the winter time. Now these birds, they're not very particular about their food. Some of these other raptors we've talked about, they really like those rodents. Broad-winged hawks really aren't any kind of specialist. They're very opportunistic. They'll catch and eat pretty much anything. Insects, lizards, mice, whatever it might be. If they can catch it, they're going to try and catch it and eat it. Even birds, sometimes they'll be catching and eating. Now, these are a little bit more of a forest dweller, and so you probably don't see them very often because they're usually in the forest. They're a little bit more secretive, I guess. The red-tailed hawks you see quite often because they're in areas that we tend to be in. But broad-winged hawks, they tend to be inside of the forest, kind of underneath the canopy, and so you don't really see them as often as some of the other raptors that we've talked about. Now, Willie here, he's with us because he came into us in 2009, I believe, and he had a little bit of head trauma, and unfortunately, he is now blind in this eye. That eye actually has been removed, and so he's only got one eye now. And so like we said, if you want to be a raptor, if you want to hunt out in the wild, you've got to be almost 100%. If you only have one eye, you're going to miss your food by a little bit each time, and eventually you'll starve to death. And so he'll live with us the rest of his life. They can live to be about 15, 20 years old, so he's getting up there in his age, but hopefully he'll be around for a much longer time. He's got it pretty easy here. He gets a free meal every single day, gets all the medical care he needs, and so he has a pretty good life here going on. Now, broad-winged hawks, like I said, they're a little bit more secretive. They're in the forest, but they are a really cool bird because of that massive migration that they go through each and every year. And they're on a little bit of a smaller size. I think yesterday he weighed in at 320 grams, so not much at all, especially when we're talking about those red tails that have weighed in over 1,000 grams these past 2 days. And so these birds are a little bit smaller size than those red-tailed hawks. You may not see them as often because they're in the forest. And so they are one of the birds that we have here in Alabama, one of the hawks that are found here in Alabama. Not year-round, but we do have them here in the summer time. And he's a fairly average-looking broad-winged hawk. Some of them are a little bit darker, some of them are a little bit lighter. All these raptors vary a little bit on their coloration, but he's a fairly average-looking broad-winged hawk. Now, when these birds are migrating, they will travel in large groups, thousands and thousands of them together, migrating down to South and Central America. A group of hawks migrating together, or a group of hawks in general, is called a kettle. So a K-E-T-T-L-E, kettle of hawks. If you stand in just the right spot in parts of the U.S., you can actually see thousands of these hawks migrate over your head in just a matter of a few hours. And so these birds go through that massive migration, thousands and thousands of miles, so that they can go to the warmer areas where there's a lot easier food for them to be able to find. We're kind of giving you a 360 degree so you can kind of see what their entire body looks like. If he'll stay still, he'll turn around on us. They always like to face me because I'm, of course, the biggest threat that there is out here. So you can see that tail, it's got those white stripings on it. That's one of the easy identifications for these birds. You can look for that. You can see that a little bit easier when they're soaring around. And that's how you can identify them between some of the different raptors, the hawks that might be flying around in your areas. Like I said, a little bit more secretive. You don't see them as much, so this might be some of your first times even seeing a broadwing hawks. But now you've learned a little bit more about them, and hopefully you'll be looking for them in the future. So that was our broadwing hawk. Don't tell my boss I'm laying down on the job. But these birds, like I said, they're a little bit more secretive. You don't see them very often, and they are that smaller size hawk. Like I said, 320 grams, so they don't weigh much at all. Keep tuning in, keep sharing these videos. Tomorrow we're going to keep talking about the hawks, but we're actually going to move on to a type of hawk that's not even found here in Alabama. And so keep tuning in, War Eagle.